Welcome to Rethink You, bringing you ideas, inspiration, and motivation to start living the life you were created to live. Here is your host, author, trainer, speaker, and coach, and founder of Rethink You, Kim Lovings.
Welcome back to the Rethink You podcast. I'm so glad to welcome you as we continue our theme in the month of June, which is personal development. And I have another wonderful coach and speaker to introduce you to today. But before we do that, I did want to remind you that on the website at rethinkyou.com, if you go to the shop, I am offering the 3 vital questions, the shift from drama to empowerment, a powerful e-course. I'm offering it at $100 off for this month of June. So you only have about 10 days left to be able to do this. So go along and check it out. I'm selling the e-course, which is taught by David Emerald himself, who was our guest on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And the course is normally $299, but I'm selling it for only $199 this month of June, since personal development is my theme. And I know just how powerful that training program can be. It has changed lives. It will impact you not just at work, but at home and in all areas of life. So go check it out at rethinkyou.com in the shop. Under training, it's called 3 Vital Questions. So let's talk about today's guest. Pamela Henkel has become a friend of mine since I was on her show for the Exposure Network, her show called The Pamela Show. If you haven't checked out her show yet, I encourage you to. Look for the Exposure Network. It is an app for iPhone or Android. And on the Exposure Network, which is a streaming television service, she has a show called The Pamela Show. But Pamela Henkel is the founder of Purpose by Design. She is a conference speaker, an author, and lead pastor at Victory Celebration Church, and is a success coach. Her weekly podcasts, vlogs, and blogs are a lifeline of education and inspiration, which you can check out on her Purpose by Design website at purposewithpamela.com. Pamela loves to lead people to dream and discover their individual potential to execute on those dreams. She is a natural motivator and has shown many how to find their niche and excel. Although success can be an uphill battle, Pamela will give you the necessary strategies to flourish, cheering her clients on every step of the way. Pamela shares from her personal experiences, education, and life as a woman in leadership, utilizing decades of knowledge. Pamela and I share much of the same passions and strengths and desires in our work. I also know that not every coach is right for every person, which is why I like to introduce you to other coaches. Like me, Pamela has programs that could help you. And if you don't believe I'm the right coach for you, perhaps Pamela is. So taking the approach of let's have coffee and chat, Pamela will awaken your dreams and purpose by design. Pamela and her husband, James, have been married since 1995 and have 6 beautiful children and 1 grandchild, along with their dog, Bailey, 3 cats, and 7 birds. Pamela's family lives as one big happy family in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm so looking forward to this conversation, and I know that you'll learn a lot from Pamela. So let's jump in. Well, welcome, Pamela. I'm so excited to have you, and I know that the listeners are going to learn a lot from you today. So why don't you start by telling us some of your story and how you ended up doing what you're doing right now, and tell us what you're doing.
What I'm doing, I'm here with you. That's what I'm doing, Kim. Thank you so much for having me here today. I just want to give a shout out to you, Kim. You're amazing. And I have had the treasure of getting to know you over the last, few months, maybe almost up to a half a year. And you're just the real deal. And to be with you today is a privilege and an honor. And so to all of you that are following her or listening, maybe for the first time, the 10th time, I don't know, this woman's the real deal. Listen to her and you'll grow, and follow her because she will lead you in the right direction. So thank you so much for having me here today, Kim. So a little bit about me. Well, I've been married 26 years this July. We have 6 children, and I always say we have 6 because we didn't want 7. My children, we were not able to have children the regular biological way. So all 6 of my children are adopted, and that makes our family very, very unique. Now, what I have to say about that is this: when you allow God, universe, creator, whoever you refer to that entity as, to me, that is God, to be your compass, he directs your life in miraculous ways. So that's a little bit on a personal side. We're animal lovers. We got lots of animals around here. They just keep coming, more animals. Oh. So on a professional side, I have been a pastor for 20 plus years, been in ministry for over 25 years. And, when I first sought out on that terrain, I knew Kim then in that young age, like just knew my purpose. I say my purpose by design. I knew what I was supposed to be doing. And so I went after it. I'm a go-getter. I'm a worker bee. I go, go, go. I was soon made roughly and rudely aware that women, especially, you go back 20 so years ago, what I was doing was not really accepted in certain communities, not just in faith communities, in business as well. So my talents, my leadership were often just ignored, out of sight, out of mind, like nothing, no response, as I'm going, hi, and I'm plugging away. Yes, as a pastor, yes, as a minister, yes, in the business world, and feeling like I'm, that proverbial hamster on the wheel, like going nowhere fast. Well, I had a rock bottom moment, and I don't even, it's not really, Kim, rock bottom. It was an aha moment. It might have started like rock bottom, but it turned up because, there's a polarity to everything. Where there's down, there's up, right? So I was at an event, and this gentleman, who was considered to be an important somebody, came up to me and looked me in the eyes and very correctively, kind of fatherly, but more stern than even a father, like a mean dad, bad dad, said, "You are a joke to the community." And this happened to be a faith one. So he meant the faith community. "You are a joke. You and your blonde hair," kind of attitude. "You should just go home." I remember standing there speechless. Kim, I didn't know what to do. Had I really missed the ball? Was I a joke? Were people laughing at me? And remember, we had 6 kids, so eventually we had 6. But so with that any number of children, but you get up around a certain number and people are like, "I get it, while you're home," right? So I could have just gone home. And you know what? I almost did. There was something inside of me that just kept saying, "No, you need to press through." But boy, my self-worth it tanked. Like, I'm a woman, I'm not good enough, I'm the wrong everything, I'm a joke, I'll never hold up. Why do I have to be blonde? All of these things. And then one night, while giving our daughter her midnight bottle, I had an epiphany moment. And these words came up from inside of me like a thunderbolt. And these were the words, I kid you not: God's purpose never changes, even if the plan does. Now, that shocked me. I wasn't expecting it. I was, of course, continuing to seek, continuing to think, continuing to pray, to meditate, sitting there giving this bottle, right? And all of a sudden, boom. And in that moment, everything flipped for me. And I made a very distinct decision that I was going to fulfill what my purpose by design, no matter what the challenges were, no matter what the naysayers said. I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to let anybody else's limited imaginations limit mine. And that catapulted me into what I'm doing today. And what am I doing today? Yeah, I'm still pastoring, but now as an inspirational speaker, an empowerment speaker, it has pushed me outside of faith circles into business circles, into all sorts of different veins and avenues to be able to speak into people's lives, purpose by design, and also to be fortunate and blessed to have a coaching program, being able to help a lot of people, a lot of women. I do coach men as well, but a lot of women get pulled to me. And I love what I do, like you do, Kim. And it is my past that brought me up to where I am today. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, how powerful, Pamela. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And even though you and I have known each other for months, I think that's the first time I've actually had you tell your story. So thank you for the blessing. And wow, to have somebody say to you, you are a joke, how painful could that be? And before you said, don't let somebody else's limited imaginations limit yours, I was reminded also of our mentor, Les Brown, how he says, don't let the opinion of others determine your destiny. And you're a prime example of that, because God's purpose is so much bigger than other people's opinions. And
Yeah.
you and I both sort of pursued our journey in that. And I'm so excited that you didn't give up on yourself, and that you are indeed now going on to bigger stages and bigger audiences. So why don't you unpack a little in terms of what types of coaching you do, and how have you found the confluence of your preaching and staying obedient to God's word while still coaching and speaking perhaps in a secular setting? Because I know it's possible, but some people are puzzled in terms of how those two threads can intertwine.
Oh, that is such a great question. So I'm going to start with the intertwining and then kind of work back through that question while unpacking. Now, you have to understand that unpacking for me is a process, because when I go somewhere, when I pack my suitcase, my father taught me how to pack. So you don't just throw the stuff in there, you roll it, because if you fold it, it gets wrinkles. So you have to roll everything up really small. And the important things you put in baggies so that if something spills, it doesn't get on them. So my process of unpacking is a lot more than whipping open my suitcase and throwing everything out there. I'm a processor. So I love these questions. And if I forget something, please redirect me to unroll or unpack that. So the intertwining. Okay, this was huge, because it was a paradigm for me for years. I really thought being called into the ministry, and by the way, ministry for me is, I'm a Christian. And so it is in that vein that I pursued as a pastor, as an itinerant minister. That means I traveled and spoke, going to pastoral conferences and teaching there, these kind of things that I would do, and even coaching in that community. I really had the paradigm that I couldn't step outside of that. Like, this was what I was going to do. And it is what I did for a very, very long time. Then a statistic came across my desk on social media that rocked my world, Kim. And this is what it said: ministers, like da 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 da. So that got my attention. You will only reach 12 to 15% of the people you are supposed to reach if you stay inside the walls of your building or ministry. Well, that was it for me. I was like, wah. I'm sorry, but now, being faith-minded here, I believe the scripture that says, well done, thou good and faithful servant. That we hear that at the end of this part of our existence. I was not going to hear, well done, you've reached 15%. Right? So I felt like that was a now word, and I needed to look. Now, of course, my mind naturally went to outreach, feeding people, and that's all good. And we need to do all of those things, and not just in a Christian community either, by the way. But I know that my heartbeat and my gifting is found in speaking. It's found in teaching. So if I am going to reach more than that 12 to 15%, it's going to be found in my ability to care and my ability to share. That's where it's going to be found, right? And at that moment, I realized I needed to step outside of what for me was church and church ministry, not just my church, traveling around, doing these different things. I needed to step out. And so unpacking the next layer of that, I began reaching out to real estate agents. I began reaching out in other small business communities, not really doing a whole lot other than just saying, I'd like to be here for you. I'd like to be here to comfort you. I'd like to be here to strengthen you. You know, I began reaching out in chaplain work, but not what you would think. I wanted to go to the person that either had no faith in anything at all, or one that was different than mine, and be a light in that community. From that, it just continued to grow until we came to the place of COVID. And at COVID, I really felt that I had maxed out. Like, okay, I've reached out in all these different communities. I need more. I need a bigger community. How do I get that? Where do I find it? Because I had boxed myself in for many years in a certain community. And so when COVID hit, a lot of people crashed. I said, oh, goody, not oh, goody to the sickness. Please understand that. I had COVID. It was awful. But what I said yes to was the opportunity to build online. And I began to do that. Facebook Lives, building Facebook groups, Instagram, taking different courses and classes, and collaborating with people like yourself. And it eventually landed with a podcast that you have been a guest on for me. And that was a straight, I felt like just a drop in from heaven. And when it began, I didn't have believers I did not have Christian believers on it. I had people that were all different faith and walks of life on it on purpose. And that opened a lot of doors for me to be able to speak into small businesses, to be able to speak into, and when I say small businesses, that might make me sound like I'm traveling around to small businesses. Let me qualify that. I have a couple that I do that with, but it has allowed me to speak into the lives of solopreneurs and small entrepreneurs. And I love it. It has also given me the opportunity to speak as a coach and a mentor into the lives of numerous people all over the world. And what do we talk about? Our purpose by design, changing our mindset, but then also as we change it, making the plan and keeping the mindset right, realizing that there is a design for our life. There's a purpose by design, Kim, and then there's default. There's purpose by default. A lot of people like me, I was running on default. And when I was pointed towards design, the veil lifted. And when we understand that, we have somebody that can take our hand, and not to hold our hand and baby us along the way, but to be our cheerleader. And sometimes that coach, you know, when the coach blows his whistle, it's not about, oh, they're there. It's, you know, get to work, right? There's a difference. And I'm a get to work coach. I will be there for you. I'll cry with you. I'll pray with you. I'll laugh with you. But when it's time to get to work, I'm going to say, chop, chop. It's time to get to work. If anything is going to be getting done in our lives, we have to do it. So that's unpacking that. When I don't think I said going into the businesses part. I've learned that in a church setting, I'm the pastor. In another church setting, if I'm visiting, I'm the minister. When I go into a business or I'm dealing with someone that is not in a church or in my church, and it's not a church setup or ministry setup, I am not there as a minister. I'm there as a representative. I'm there as a speaker. I'm there as a coach. And I can still implement heaven's way. Thou shalt not steal. Do we agree with that? right? Thou shalt, well, not thou shalt, prefer one another. Believe the best in one another. These are common things. Love one another. And in doing that, I believe we are still bringing the heavenly principles into every location, but it is not my job then to be the pastor. It's my job just to be the messenger, right? So to me, that's how I cross that. It's not that I would walk into some place and devoid myself of my beliefs. I'm pretty clear about that. But every person, just like you, just like me, have to come to their road of faith independently. It's not our job to force them. And that's not why I'm there. I'm there to bring forth principles to help them locate their purpose by design and then fulfill it. As I say, Kim, and this will be my last statement on the unpacking, be the salt and light everywhere you go. If we are the salt and light and we teach others to be the salt and light, what a wonderful world this will be.
Wow, Pamela, what a great unpacking. And I was chuckling when you spoke about your suitcase because my father also taught us how to pack. And my daughter often says, let's do a granddad pack. It means that you can fit two-thirds extra stuff in your bag if you pack properly by rolling things so that they don't get wrinkled. And yeah, but to get more serious, I loved how you unpack what you did and how you intertwine those threads, because as you were speaking, a couple of thoughts came to mind. The one reminded me of a saying I heard years ago that said the church is one of the only organizations that's primary purpose for existence is for those that are not yet members.
Mm.
And I'm like, how true is that? We are called to be the salt and light, and you can't be the light if you're living in the living room where all the lights are on. You are called to go to places of darkness. So thank you for that, because I know I walk a similar journey. I'm not a pastor, but as you know, I'm a confessing Christian, and I'm not apologizing for my faith, but I know how important it is to reach people who are maybe not on the same faith walk with the hope. But as you've gone along, I know too that, not everyone is fortunate enough to have those epiphanies like you did. And, God's purpose never changes, even though the plans do. Like you and me both having a clear sense of purpose that is God-given, what would you say to somebody who feels that they don't have a purpose in them, but what they do, they can't figure out what it is? Is that a common pushback to your purpose by design mission? People who say they don't believe they have a purpose and they can't figure it out. What do you say to them?
What a great question. And it's actually one of my favorite questions. It doesn't scare me. It doesn't make me go, I don't know what to say, right? Number one, everyone is here on purpose. So there are no accidents. I don't care, where, what, how, no accidents. Everybody is here on purpose with a purpose. Sometimes you need to borrow somebody else's belief in you until you can believe it yourself. Now, there was a time for me when I had to do that. So at a very young age, I married. And at a very young age, I divorced. I said I was married 26 years. I didn't tell you the backstory. When I married at a very young age, I married a man who was an alcoholic and abusive. And I got out before it got bad, by the way, but nevertheless, I was there. And being that I had found my faith in the middle of all of that mess, I found myself beating myself up, feeling like I was tainted goods. Here I was in my young 20s and doing what I needed to do, Bible school and all of that. Had come out of this, was in a bad marriage, left a marriage. And of course, there's all that conversation about, can a woman minister? Number one. Number two, what about if he or she is a divorcee? Can they? And can you remarry? All of these things bombarding me. I started taking some divorce counseling with the same minister who had actually officiated our wedding because he was a personal friend of our families. And I'll never forget that his name is Pastor Doug. Pastor Doug said, Pamela, as I'm crying and saying, have I made a mistake? And am I ever going to be able to do what I really feel like I should be doing? Because I had just begun that road and then all of this happened, right? He said to me, if you were made out of sugar candy, you would have been blown away years ago. You're not sugar candy, honey. You are made out of steel. And until you can see the steel in you that I see, borrow your belief in me until yours catches up with my own. That was his words. We were meeting at a restaurant that day, and for the first time in a long time at that moment, I walked out of that restaurant with my head held high. Somebody sees the steel in me. Now that didn't mean like hardness, like, but the collectiveness, the togetherness, the strength, the purpose. And I chose to hang on to that until I did see it in myself. And so when people come back and share those stories with me, I don't care what their mistakes are. I had a miscarriage. I married the wrong person. Hey, come on, we've all made mistakes. I could list some more if you'd like. But the thing is that never degrades our purpose. It only empowers our purpose. And it is okay to just let me or Kim or whoever it is show you, hold a mirror up in front of you of who we see you to be, who heaven sees you to be, and ride on that wave for as long as you need to. Little by little, if you keep on keeping on, you will get it and you will have that solid belief yourself, just like I did. It didn't happen overnight. I walked out feeling better, and Doug would call me every day because we didn't have texting back then. Are you believing in my belief in you today, Pamela, or your own? And I'd say, oh, definitely yours. I'm definitely believing yours. I don't want to believe mine. And then one day, I don't remember, 3 months, 6 months, it doesn't matter. When that question was asked to me, I said, no, I'm believing my belief now. And Doug said, what belief is that? And I said that I'm made of steel and I have a purpose. Ah, your belief, Pamela, caught up with mine. So just grab someone else's belief and choose to believe it little by little. And then finally, believing doesn't mean that I mentally assent, right? It doesn't mean that I totally get it. You just keep saying it until it drops in. It's like when you learned your math tables, right? Eventually you were just like, 2 times 2 or whatever, right? But eventually it became automatic that you knew what it was. So the more we say that out loud, speak it over ourselves and talk to ourselves, the Bible says mumble to ourselves about it, right? Eventually it goes from just this mere head knowledge, right? It drops into the subconscious or your heart, your spirit, and it becomes, I call it the knowing in your knower knowledge. And when you know it in your knower, that's it, right? That's it. So there you go.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What a great unpacking of that too. Because it's so true that if people are not sure of their purpose, somebody else will see in you what you perhaps are not seeing in yourself. So thank you for sharing that beautiful story, Pamela. But we also know that sometimes life is not a straight path. Sometimes it's a zigzag with lots of detours along the way. And there's times that we get stuck we can't see the forest for the trees, and we realize we may be off track. Did you have any seasons in your life besides your first marriage, which you've mentioned, but anything other times in your life where you did get off track, where perhaps you temporarily lost your way? And how did you find your way back?
I'm reminded of a funny story, and that was a bunch of Mary Kay women, and I was invited to go on this big ladies who lunch kind of event. And I went there not knowing what to expect. We were all dressed to the nines because we were supposed to. And the director took out these big yellow construction hats and put them on us. And so there we were sitting around this, I don't remember if it was a fancy tea parlor or whatever it was, but there we all were in our gorgeous, dresses, all dressed to the nines with these construction hats on. And she said, don't ever forget that you're a work in progress. Wow. I've been reminded of that so many times. In Minnesota, we have usually two seasons, winter and construction. And I'm in Minnesota. And so in construction season, you know, the road is destroyed. It's a mess. It's under what? Construction. It's in process. And then all of a sudden, that is laid down. And then another part is, all this stuff, things do get, they sometimes get, they get messed up. Sometimes things don't go exactly the right way, or in order to get you to the next place, there's some stuff you have to go through. I have remembered the whole, here I looked, oh, hey, I'm dressed up all nice, but hey, I'm under construction. So that has been something that's followed me through my adult life. When have been some times that I have gone astray. I mean, gosh, how many times could I say? There's always times when I have been pulled off, just because we know all of this stuff doesn't always mean we practice all of this stuff, because, hey, the last time I checked, we're all human. And that's why we need each other. And that's why a coach, accountability partner, not just somebody that's going to say, oh, there, yes, sweet friend, but somebody who has call me on the carpet status in our lives is so important, because they can come in and redirect you. There have been a number of times when my life landscape has changed. When my father passed away in 2012, my life landscape changed huge, because my faith was tested. Yeah, my faith was tested. Everything I believed and preached was tested as I lay there looking at a lifeless, formless body. And I remember falling on my knees and saying, I believe, help my unbelief. And that is a scripture from the New Testament of the cry out of a father saying, I want to believe this is all real, but I'm struggling up in my headspace right now. So God help me. So that was an area for me. And then it was, well, we have to trust the process. When it came to letting go, I shared with you before the show, I like to grab a hold of things and white knuckle them. And, if it's going to be, it's up to me kind of attitude, right? And it was a process for my wonderful assistant, Nicole. Kudos to her for putting up with me, patiently working with me as I gripped a hold of Purpose by Design and Pamela Henkel Ministries, and just helping me release those fingers and let them go and hand things over and find out that I didn't have to try to do it all, and that I was enough. Being that I came out of this whole thing, struggling with identity of being a woman, having that struck down by important people, remarrying, even going through the time when biological children were not possible. And by the way, when you adopt them, you don't love them any different. They are yours. They've been given to you through your heart. But going through all of those things and wondering, sometimes, did I miss it? What's wrong with me? I should just quit now. Who would ever listen to me? Having that person or persons that has that call you on the carpet status, that can remind you, borrow that belief again, remind you. Every time I've walked through one of those, there's somebody in my life that I have given permission that I don't have to call them. I can say, you have permission to call me. And they do. And nowadays it's text or message or whatever. To just have that person that'll come into your life and speak into your life and say, hey, whatever it is that needs to be said. And then I had to learn how to process that and trust the process, right? And always realize that if there's opposites, if there's a low point, there's a high point coming. And then if there's a high point, you don't go, oh no, there's a low point coming, right? But you realize there is a process. And instead of looking at it as mistakes, I look at it as learning. I look at it as lessons. And instead of saying, I'm down again, like I fell down again, Les Brown, our mentor, said, fail forward and get really good at it. And that became my mantra, probably around the age of 35 years of age or so. I'm failing forward for the rest of my life. And every time I'm down, I'm getting right back up. I'm trusting the process. I'm going to feel what I need to feel. I'm going to grow through it, not just go through it. And having that has made this stuff in my life easier. And instead of me going up and down for all of the rides, honestly, over time, study and practice, because practice makes perfect. You got to put this stuff into practice. Instead of maybe me going, as those things in life happen, maybe I'm here and back up again, right? And here and back up again. Practice what, well, I'll say it for me, practice what you preach, right? Practice what you teach, practice what you know, and have people there that'll come in and say, hey, that's not what you would tell me, and remind you of who you are and whose you are.
Absolutely wonderful, Pamela. Thank you. And, I didn't need to ask the question about what are some key life lessons, because you've offered us up several, and I know people have learned a lot from you. And as we sort of wrap up here, how would you label, for want of a term, label or sort of call out what you've seen are your gifts and talents and common threads in your life as a result of what's transpired through all these events in your life?
You are just full of amazing questions. Oh, Kim, ever since I was little, I was a leader. And not just the leader that would say, I'll do it. That would be me. I'll do it. Let's go. But I see gifts in people. I see talents in people. And I love, 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 love to pull them out of people. Honestly, it makes many people, many folks uncomfortable with that, because, and I don't care, that's fine, get uncomfortable. I'm known as that person. If you want to be comfortable, don't come see Pamela. And that's very true. Now I'll comfort you and I'll accept you and love you. But when I see those gifts in you, I'm going to start pulling. I'm going to start peeling. I'm going to start digging. And so I saw that at a very young age and would be drawn to people that others might not have been drawn to. Not necessarily drawn to the underdog to be saying, oh, they're their person, but to maybe drawn to them to help them see their potential. And at a very young age, I was very into personal development and personal discovery. In fact, in my sophomore year of high school, I took a class that was called Seeing Yourself in Others. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, explaining what it was, right? It was a semester. At the end of that class, the teacher, Mr. Danner, I remember him to this day, came to me and said, you really understand this stuff and you soar at it. So why don't you come back and be my assistant teacher and you teach along with me? So for that year and the following year, I was let out of study hall. I don't know how I feel about that, because that meant I had more homework, but I did not have to. They made my study hall hour the hour that I would be with him. And I learned so much and taught it. Then that took me into the chemical dependency program there. And I worked with the CD counselor. From there, he said, you're just so good at encouraging and inspiring people. I want you to come in and I want to train you as a CD counselor. So I was 16, 17 years old, and I was doing this. And from that person, his name was Mr. Anderson, handed me over to a lady named Nancy, whose last name I don't remember because she was always Nancy. And she had a group about seeing the best in yourself. And she had a big stuffed animal named Charlie. And we would have to pass Charlie around. He was hilariously ugly looking stuffed animal. And we would have to hold him. And it was so hard to be sad or serious when you held that monkey. And her whole thing was self-development, self-discovery, empowering, and she worked with teenagers and young adults. And I sat along her side at the age of 17, 18 years of age, something like that, and learned and became a star pupil and assistant for her. And that took me into being a speaker with Junior Achievement, which I had been in all along. So from a very young age, I was pulled into this arena. But as a young teenager, we're not older teenager, 19, 20, I didn't really know which direction it was going to take me until my faith became mine and not my parents or my grandmother's or somebody else's, became mine. And then it was directed into ministry and now directed into these other areas we've spoke about. So from little on up, it's been people, helping people, training people, and pointing them to their design.
I love that because, yeah, it's so true that you had people around you to call forth those gifts and affirm them and nurture them. So wonderful. Pamela, this has been such a lovely discussion. I've really enjoyed getting to know more about you and your story. So as we close, what do you hope that the listeners will remember about you when they finish listening, when they switch off and get on with their day? What would you like them to remember?
That they have a purpose by design and not by default. That's what I would love them to remember. Just remember that and then go after it. Talk to Kim, talk to me, trust the process, and find the people that will uplift you and say, go, remember, run, Forrest, run, Forrest, run, that they will just be your cheerleaders behind you. You have a purpose by design, not by default.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pamela. And again, people, if you'd like to learn more about Pamela, visit her at purposewithpamela.com. Learn more about Purpose by Design. Pamela, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Kim. It's been an honor. This is perfect timing because there's a train coming. I hear it on my end.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We'll say that's a wrap. And
Yep.
to the listeners, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.